So to start off with, we're going to have a few words from the band's representative, James, on why UB40 have chosen to endorse Jeremy Corbyn today.
Hello there. Thank you all for coming today. My name is James. I'm a representative from the band's management team, and I'd like to introduce you to our UB40 Corbyn incentive. And the band are here today to talk about why they back Jeremy for the leadership of the Labour Party. Jeremy's campaign is about bringing people together and reaching out to all sections of society to build a Labour government and a Labour movement that can rebuild and transform Britain so that no one and no community is left behind. I had the pleasure of having a very spontaneous chance meeting with Jeremy about a year ago on Corbyn Street, and I'm delighted to introduce the band to him today and to talk to you about this wonderful initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. And now a few words from Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party.
Thank you, Sophie, and thank you for coming along today, and thank you to UB40 for this incredible endorsement. This started on Corbyn Street in Islington. It's actually nothing to do with me that it's called Corbyn Street, although everyone on the street wants to know if it is or not. We were doing some door knocking last year, came across James, and we had a long chat about music, about culture, about art, and about the place of music in our society. And from that has come this event today. So thank you very, very much for the endorsement, for the support, and for everything that you do. Because music is part of our lives. Music is an important part of everybody's existence, and your band, formed in the late 1970s during a time of increasing youth unemployment, then went on to become this iconic name, UB40, stood up for young people who were going through the depression of the early 1980s, going through youth opportunity schemes, YTS schemes, and all those things which seldom led to jobs, often led to a great deal of exploitation, and often working in very dangerous and insecure conditions. You supported the miners' strike, you supported the campaign against apartheid, you support refugees, you support human rights causes all over the world, and your music is obviously based in the reggae music of that time, but it's developed so much, and you've brought in so many other people to be appreciative of what you say and what you do. And your audiences are now people of all ages, my generation, if you like, that remember you from that time, but also a lot more who see something good, progressive, and inclusive in the way you do your music. So thank you very much for all you've done over all these years to inspire so many people. And it's a real pleasure to be with you here today. I'm not going to sing, I'm not going to dance, so I don't qualify for any of those kind of things. And one of the most successful acts of all time. And so what you've done is brought together people of all cultures and backgrounds. And that is something that's very important, because too many of our young people live in great poverty. Half our children live in poverty, and it's not right and doesn't work for the health of our economy and our society. And so our campaign for the leadership of the Labour Party is at one level, of course, about the big economic questions, about the need to invest in our society, our infrastructure, our sustainable energy projects, and all those issues that go with it. It's also about social justice in society, of paying people decent wages, a living wage. It's also about not penalising those with disabilities by putting them through the indignity of the availability for work tests, many of which they fail, and then end up in a desperate place, often in some cases leading to even suicides as a result of it. It is fundamentally about issues of social justice within our society. But it's also about cultural issues and cultural opportunities within our society. We're here in the Royal Society of the Arts, the most beautiful, iconic building in London. At one level, it could be said this represents the elite of art, it represents the philanthropy of those that are very rich in order to promote art, and that's where the building came about. But it's also, I think, a space for all of us. A space for all of us to be creative, a space for all of us to be included in cultural values. And so, last week at the Edinburgh Festival, we launched our arts policy. And the fundamental behind that is there's creativity in all of us. We need to give everyone the opportunity for that creativity to flourish. The expenditure of the Arts Council has been cut back, therefore its ability to give grants has been cut back, therefore the imbalance has got even worse, and even across London there's a massive difference between that, the money which is available in outer London boroughs to that that's available in inner London boroughs that are nearer to national theatres and galleries. And across the country, far too many municipally owned theatres are either underused or almost closed. Too many libraries are barely open or only open at restricted times or relying on volunteers to keep them going. And along with that, so many live music venues and pubs are closing down. And so the opportunity of the musicians of tomorrow to get rehearsal space, to get playing space, is disappearing at the same time. So what we want is an arts policy that starts with the principle that everyone has a right to be creative, every child has a right to learn a musical instrument, and hopefully we'll get the chance to do that at school, and that we invest in the culture of all of our communities. And it's not a zero-sum game, because for every pound you put into creative industries, you get at least £1 extra back in revenue from the economy that it generates. It's an economic generator and something of good to all. But it's also a way of bringing communities together. So if last week somebody was telling me with great passion how they heard a Romanian band for the first time at a local community festival in North London. They'd never heard of Romanian music before. They knew nothing about Romanian music. But they were suddenly attracted by what they heard. Surely that's a good thing, because that means there's a better level of understanding of that community and its music. So specifically, we want to reverse the Tory cuts on arts expenditure, introduce a national creative apprenticeship service so that we can help young people to gain apprenticeships in the music industry, defending our cultural assets by a moratorium on the privatisation and closures within the museum sector. The national museums are wonderful, and I'm delighted that they're free, and I thank Chris Smith, previous Culture Secretary in the last Labour government, for ensuring that they are free, hopefully free for all time. But other museums around the country are not necessarily free, therefore they are a deterrent to those that can't afford to take children there. There's something very good about looking at those who now go to our national museums at weekends. They go there because it's free, because they can enjoy it, because all children can go along there and enjoy it. I want our museums to be accessible for all. After all, the contents of museums were usually donated to the public, so the public would all have access to them. So it's also about considering dance and drama as national curriculum subjects within their own right. So we recognise the whole cultural values that run through the Labour Party and the Labour movement. And when I go to great events like the Durham Miners Gala or the Tolpuddle Martyrs Festival, last Sunday the Burston event in Norfolk, which celebrates the great struggle for rural education in Norfolk during the 20s and 30s and right through to the 1940s. Those festivals bring together, yes, the history of great achievements, but they also bring together that amazing art, the amazing art of banners, the amazing art of rural music. And so what we need to do is create a sense of cultural value in our society, that every young person can learn music, everyone has access to arts and culture, and we don't leave it to those that can afford it or those elites that are able to sponsor it. There has to be a public involvement. The great Jenny Lee, who set up the Arts Council when she was the Minister for Arts in the Labour government in the 1960s, also established the Open University. And that was the idea that everyone should have access to learning, access to education, and access to arts. We all love music, we all love art, we all love culture. Let's not just be observers of it, let's be participants in it. Let's learn from the great music that's been done by bands like UB40 and the way they brought so many people together, enjoying music. And when they come together enjoying things, they come together in lots of other causes as well. It defeats and destroys racism, it defeats and destroys xenophobia, it gives communities that sense of empowerment of coming together, of what we can achieve when we come together. So let's let no part of Britain be left behind, let's let no cultural values be left behind, let's open up the vision and the space for everybody to enjoy the music and culture that we all enjoy here today. Thank you very much.
Jeremy, and thank you to UB40 for endorsing Jeremy's re-election bid. UB40 have kindly endorsed us on all their social media as well. You can see our meme that's going to be on all their social media. So now we're going to take some questions. We can start with the audience questions first. If anyone who has a question to put their hand up from the audience.
Before you take any questions, Mr. Corbyn, when this is over, could we do a picture you and the band by the front door? Because it just doesn't work here.
Well,
You're so kind, you're so polite.
We can do a photo.
You need to do it by the front door in the daylight. It just doesn't really work.
If the band agrees, and you are of course the most polite photographer I've ever met.
Okay, so audience questions.
He's the doyen of all photographers.
Down in the green top over there.
yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
We'll take him off first, we'll bring him back down.
Yeah, okay. Well, we will go and wait outside.
Yeah, we'll bring him back down.
Sorry, I have a question from the audience. Go on,
What was the
green
question?
top.
How can a Labour government learn from and use the arts at the heart of policy making?
I think we use it as a way of bringing people together. That when they think creatively around music, painting and culture, or any kind of art, they also think about other things within society. And I've always been impressed with the way in which free-spirited and free-thinking art amongst children can achieve so much. I visit many schools, and including special schools, or including art done by children with special needs, or those that have autism or other conditions. And in their art, you see the most amazing expressions and ideas and imagination, which they find difficult of expressing because of the condition they're in. But nevertheless, art is a release for them. But they need the space to do it. They need the opportunity to do it. We also need to avoid the embarrassment of older children who feel they can't talk about art, they can't talk about poetry, it's not cool to do so. Well, why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't it be absolutely open and cool to do so? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's but of course that people do that naturally, don't they? That's it's a need that people have got to express themselves, and they'll do it whether they're supported or not. And it's obviously the Tories are Philistines, aren't they? They don't care about the arts at all. So it's fairly important that we have to be interested.
Tell me, do you like classical music as well?
Occasionally, yeah. I mean, obviously, being in England, because it's a multicultural country, because of our history of empire, and we've always had those influences, those different diverse influences. We were from inner city Birmingham, which was a melting pot in the 70s. Not so much now. There are more ghettos than melting pots these days.
That was before they got rid of the motor.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? Yeah.
Hi there. I'm a DIY artist. I've had some music played on Radio 2. I've collaborated with on a track that I've written with Basement Jacks, but this was all through my own contacts and through people that I know or that I've worked with, and found the music industry very, very impenetrable and increasingly kind of a bit of a closed shop. And I think of what Frank Cottrell Boyce said, which is that he's the writer of the Olympic opening ceremony, which wowed the whole world. And he said that the bedrooms are the factories of culture in Britain. And so it really was just to ask, how can we open this up and make it increase accessibility to people who are on the outside, who are often doing the more cutting edge things, and also diversify the industry?
It's simple. It's simple. Convince people to buy music, to purchase some music, and not to download it for nothing. You can't make it for nothing. There's a cost behind that, and it's an industry that employs people. and a lot of people, and that's why it seems so impenetrable at the moment.
And also the music business is in flux, isn't it, because of the internet and pirating. Then obviously it's a model that doesn't work anymore, and it's like turning around the Titanic, trying to make them approach things in a different way.
I would thought the internet's made it more accessible.
Yeah, it's democratised it, yeah.
But people can become stars in their bedrooms now, but, you know.
You can't necessarily earn a living from it.
No, that's the difference.
But you know, when we first started, the record companies had a monopoly on everything. Now they haven't, which is a good thing.
One of the points we put in our paper, which we launched last week in Edinburgh, was precisely that the creativity that's there often doesn't lead to an income afterwards because of the extent of downloading and therefore non-paying for it. So we are consulting as widely as we can on how we can bring about some degree of protection of income, particularly for young musicians who are not going to be doing tours like you are, because basically bands like yourself survive on tour.
Absolutely.
It's all live.
Yeah.
So all those hours on planes and trains is what you do it for.
It's absolutely, yes, yeah.
It used to be that touring was paid for by your record sales. It really didn't matter whether you earned money after this or not, you know. And this whole industry's built up a false model, really, but, you know, that was based on record sales. And now that they're not there, we've got to make money from playing live. That's the only way.
So there is a danger timeline here that young creative musicians are not going to get on tours and all that straight away, and therefore how do they survive?
Well, there you go. We're all wondering.
There's that thing pay to play as well, isn't there, where it costs the band money to put on a gig. They don't get paid enough to
What do you mean, the pubs that charge them to play?
Yeah.
Well, there was a time when a band went on the road, went on tour to promote an album or to promote a record. Now it's completely reversed. You make a record to promote the live dates, which is, I suppose, a lot closer to the idea of being a musician, where you go and perform to people for your love of performing music and the love of the idiom, you know, it's all reversed. It's not so bad. Not so bad.
Not so bad at all.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
And a final question from the audience? Microphone?
We live in a society where people find it very hard to get into the creative industry, and some people receive a great musical education, and some people simply won't. What would you do to fix that gap in musical inequality?
And if you don't mind passing the microphone for us.
Fix the gap on getting into creative education, say. Well, fix the gap by first of all funding education properly, and schools and art in schools, but also encouraging the structure of education to be strong at a local level, so that is not having every secondary school and primary school as a competing free school or an academy, but have a strong family of education through local education authorities, which in turn can provide the add-on facilities for particularly music and theatre and drama, which are very important. But it's also encouraging children to be creative, and young people, when they do want to take up music, to play, perform and rehearse, there's a huge problem about getting rehearsal space. There's a huge problem about chain pubs being generally averse to live music, whereas independent pubs tend to be more in favour of live music, and therefore using the asset of community value, planning ideas in order to defend and retain community pubs and community music spaces is to me something that's very, very important. Of course you've got to deal with the planning issues about noise and all the conditions about neighbours, but a lot of that can be overcome. And in my own constituency, I'm disappointed at the number of pubs that have closed or been turned into chain pubs that are simply not interested in live music, whereas we used to have in my own constituency a whole stream of pubs playing wonderful, creative, mainly Irish music, but other music as well. And that was something that brought the whole community together. Is a great thing to do, because also retaining cultural identity is important. So second and third generation Irish people also want to enjoy Irish music, just the same as people in the Caribbean, South Asia, or anywhere else. So it's also saying to local authorities, please do your best when you're planning to ensure that you don't just give permission to galleries, you also give permission for rehearsal space and creativity space. I think our colleagues in the band might want to say something on this.
Well, I think that in Birmingham anyway, we've seen music venues just obliterated, but it's not just to do with funding for the arts, it's to do with the fact that the breweries own most of the pubs, and the real estate's worth more than the business that they get from the pubs. So it takes them a while, but by hook or by crook, they tend to get burned down and, and suddenly turned into flats. You know, nasty accidents happen.
Yeah.
But we've got almost no venues left in Birmingham outside the city centre.
Yeah, small venue. I mean, when we first started, it was there was a band on every corner, every street corner. But these days, not so much. You know, I think the idea of it's expensive. Feeding a band is expensive, and you know, it's much easier to go out with a box of records under your arm and be as a DJ rather than playing in a band. But you need some kind of support structure somehow to help people to get together and make music. Because that's the best thing about music, is when you get together and make it together, not just individuals.
Okay, thank you.
Why do you think, going to ask the panelists, why do you think this country is so creative of music compared to many others?
I think certainly the cultural background, the multicultural background,
mix,
which reflects empire, doesn't it? Really, you know. I mean, we're into reggae music, but obviously, you know, the West Indies and the Caribbean was next colony. So I think that's what gives us our edge when it comes to diversity. Anyway,
But we assimilate, you know, we did with American music as well, didn't we? You know, we did our version of every American hit that was before Caribbean music came in, Asian music, etc. came into influence. We were rehashing American music. You know, that's what we do. We assimilate. Of course, we were improving it. That's what we do. You know. I don't quite know why. I think it's because we're an island.
yeah, that's part. But also, you know, not every country has got that background of empire. They've really got that to and fro from what they constantly.
And the language helps.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now we can go to the media. So to start off with, we have a question from Julia Rampin at the New Statesman. Do we have the microphone? Sorry. For the benefit of the live stream, could everyone speak close to the microphone?
Hi, this question is for Jeremy, but everyone as well. What can politicians actually learn from musicians and bands?
Not a lot.
I think teamwork, supporting each other, coming together, being creative together, improving society together, working together. That's what bands do until they fall out. No band ever fell out. So I think you can learn a lot from that, and also learn of that determination to say, look, this is my music, this is me, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to put it out there, and I hope you like it. Up to you guys.
Yeah, but also there's a collaborative side to things as well. It's a collaboration between, between people. If you
There's a lot of compromise.
yeah, well, if you want to look at it that way, but you could see it as cooperation, because in the end, it's a bunch of people who've got to get together. And I think if you want to keep a band together for a long time, then it should be democratic, really, that everybody in the band should be contributing their piece. It shouldn't be just down to the songwriters or I think there should be.
The whole business of music is collaborative. Whether you're in the audience or you're a musician, it's a deal you do together. You make a noise to strangers and hope they like it. Then, and it's good. It's a peaceful activity. It's never hurt anybody. The most abstract of all the arts. You can't see it. You can't touch it. It certainly touches us in many ways, in the deepest of ways. Makes it feel good, sexy. It's a collaborative process, and that's got to be a good thing between strangers.
It's a team of the band, but it's also your support acts, those that put the venue on and all that. You can't do one without the other.
The crew, yeah. I mean, the crew are amazing. They move house every day, more or less. It's equivalent to.
And importantly, it employs a lot of people as well. It gives a lot of people the opportunity to work within their desired field. So that's got to be important.
Okay. And now to Michael Crick. Could I just remind the panel to also use the microphone, please?
Mr. Corbyn, a leaked memo from the Permanent Secretary of the Education Department, leaked in the last hour or so, confirms that the government is considering opening new grammar schools. What's your reaction to that?
I'm in favour of comprehensive education. I'm in favour of young people being taught together of differing abilities, because that helps them to develop at their own pace, but also helps everyone to understand the abilities and values in each other. And whilst I've often heard many Conservative politicians talk about bringing back the grammar school, I've never ever heard any Conservative politician ever call for the return of the secondary modern school. Right. And once we go into selectivity of education at the age of 11, I think that's a backward step as well.
The band, what do they think?
Good.
Why? Yeah, you know, I think
surely a level playing field is a way forward, you know. Not everybody comes from the same circumstances. I mean, even schools, you know, you'll get one kid in a class who's almost a year older than the other kid when they start school at 5 years old. And then streaming happens, you know, you get kids with an advantage of age or background or IQ. I mean, surely a level playing field is what we should be searching for.
We were in the middle of the battle for comprehensive schooling, and we were at school when it was all happening. And I remember going on demonstrations that didn't please my teachers much, because obviously they wanted to keep our specialist little our school and not become a part of the comprehensive system. And I was on demonstrations then to say that I approved of the move towards comprehensive schools.
Yeah, it's about elitism in the end, and I think that cult of elitism it doesn't work. You know, it's been shown that a group of average people who are diverse will make better decisions than the elite who all think the same, which is what we've got. You know, you had Tristram Hunt, was it, a couple of weeks ago, going to Oxford and saying that they are the new leaders, but that's not what the Labour Party should be about, I don't think. You know, it's not finding an elite leadership, it's about using diversity as, you know, to its advantage.
But weren't grammar schools the best way for people to climb the ladder in the old days?
Some people. Well, what about the others that are left behind?
The point is that the decision's made at 11 and it's different and it's binding, and it just seems very odd to me to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life at the age of 11.
Okay, and the next question from the BBC.
Thank you, Nick Watt from Newsnight. Jeremy, can I just ask you, you said in your speech that UB40 are an iconic band that captured a political and cultural mood with which you identified in the decade that you were first elected to Parliament. And can I ask you, is the music that moves you music that you identify with politically, or do you ever hear a piece of music which you just love emotionally, regardless of any political theme? And I guess what I'm really working up to ask you is,
I was hoping you'd wake up to something.
Are you secretly jealous of Ed Balls, and would you really like to do that? Strictly Come Dancing.
Within the confines, seclusion and privacy of this room, can I let you, and perhaps you'll tell the others, I have absolutely no desire whatsoever to go off Strictly Come Dancing. I wish Ed Balls well. I hope he enjoys it, but I'm not planning to do that myself. Yeah, music affects people in lots of different ways, because we associate music with times in your life. I got to love Caribbean music in the 1960s when I lived and worked in Jamaica for 2 years. And that taught me a whole thing then about original reggae bands. The Merrymen, who sung from dawn till dusk, or dusk till dawn, well, they sang all the time actually. And those sort of groups, I remember that as a time in my life, but it also opened up my ideas on music to lots of other people. And so yes, one is attracted to the music of some people who've done sort of great political things, like Joan Baez and the singing she's done, and that incredible voice she's got. And to me, it was an honour beyond belief to be asked to speak on a stage after she had sung. I wish it had been the other way around, actually, because it was a bit of a downer, really, for me to speak after her. But also, I love a lot of classical music. I love Mahler, for example, and I enjoy going to the proms once a year if I can, because I think that you try to understand what it is that motivated somebody to sit in a garret room, often in great poverty, in the 18th or 19th century, and turn out something that is truly stupendous when they didn't have the opportunity to play it immediately and see what it was like. They had to write it out, find an orchestra that could perform it, and then decide if it was any good or not. That was an incredibly complicated process. And I think one should just admire the skill that goes into that, and the skill of the teachers that managed to teach those people to write music. I think music is a fantastic message. I don't know if you would do your writing in that way.
It's no good asking us. We do it everything arse backwards.
Okay, so how does it work then?
We just get in a room and knock something together, which is generally how we do things. So.
And but then you can record it and play it back to yourself.
Yeah, well that's it. We can afford to have the equipment here to
somebody writing classical music on their own can't record it and play it back.
Yeah.
It's the technology that's changed.
Okay, and now do you have a question from Jessica Albert of The Guardian?
Hi.
Do the mic. Sorry, can we get the microphone?
I think you need a microphone all the way back there.
Hi there, sorry to take it away from music for a bit. Obviously, Keith Faz has just resigned as chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. When you were asked about it over the weekend, you said that you thought it was a private matter for Mr. Vaz, and Theresa May said that she thought that it was important that the public have confidence in politicians. Now that he's resigned, do you think he's done the right thing, and do you agree with the Prime Minister on that?
He's made that decision himself. I just heard before I came in that he's resigned as chair of the Home Affairs Committee, and I think we should leave it at that point. Whatever else comes out of this will be a matter for him and others, not me.
Do you think it was the right decision?
He's made his decision because he felt that to carry on in the circumstances that he's now involved in would detract from the work of the Home Affairs Select Committee, and so he's made that decision to resign.
Thank you.
The Prime Minister's words about having confidence in politicians, despite what happens in Parliament.
Well, there has to be confidence in a democratic process, and therefore confidence in politicians and what they do. Keith has made that decision to resign. I think we should respect that decision, thank him for his work as chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, and move on from there.
Thank you. And now a final question from ITV.
We know where you are. It's the microphone we don't know about.
I've been listening to the instructions clearly that I needed to use it. Jeremy, you say that we do need to move on from where we are on Keith Faz, but he remains a member of the National Executive for Labour. As party leader, should he remain there while these serious allegations are investigated? For example, you did suspend Ken Livingstone from that very committee when allegations were made against him. And do you think he should maintain the party whip?
The NEC will be discussing that next week when Keith attends the meeting. Keith will be there, as I understand it. He's an elected member of the NEC, and whatever decision is made on his future will be obviously partly made by him, but at the moment we're waiting for news on this.
But as I say, you suspended Ken Livingstone when there were allegations made against him. That decision a few months ago. Therefore, should not a similar decision be made concerning Keith Faz while these allegations, as they still are investigated?
Well, can we look at the allegations first?
Thank you. And so that will be it. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And thanks again to UB40 and Jeremy Corbyn.
Thanks, Dave. Which way are we going out?
This way. Take it with us.
Yeah, great. Robin?